ladies and gentlemen. Please continue to enjoy your meal while we begin the formal part of the proceedings this evening. To begin with formal proceedings, I would like to call on Mr. Frank Ledden, Chairman of the City of Limerick VEC, to say a few words to you. Frank Ledden, please.
Good evening, folks. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lascarner, Curley, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, one of the more pleasant duties I have as Chairman of the City of Limerick VEC is to come here to Cosfor, a function every year. And indeed, it is my 7th occasion to be present. And it gives me great pleasure to be here to congratulate all concerned, especially those receiving their rewards here this evening. They are richly deserved. And indeed, as Chairman of the City of Limerick VEC, I see the wider educational value of the service provided by you people here tonight, and by all those people involved in the promotion of a sporting way of life. I am indeed particularly pleased with the very many schemes undertaken by Limerick City Sports Advisory Body. Their brief is clearly visible from the work they have undertaken. It is certainly an in brackets sport for all, and what worthwhile causes benefit, as do Milford Hospice here in Limerick to the running of Cosfor 10 so much the better. And indeed, it is your credit as an organisation and a function such as this that Milford Hospice and many other organisations would richly deserve the work you have done for them over the many years. And indeed, as a sports body, you have represented many different disciplines. In undertaking the work of Limerick City Sports Advisory Body, you are taking on an extra load already on overburdened shoulders. And on behalf of my committee, I sincerely thank you, most sincerely, for your endeavours over the past number of years. And I am very pleased as Chairman of my committee to pay a special tribute here this evening to Miss Mary Costello, our Secretary, for the role she has played, and I offer her my sincere thanks on your behalf. And as been advised from Mr. Gerry, the Chairman here this evening, that the speeches should be of the brevity, and I intend to adhere to request of Mr. Burke. But for my own part, on behalf of my committee, as a public functional body authority here in the City of Limerick, I can give an undertaking here tonight that my committee will not be found wanting in the nature of giving to your body any grant-aided assistance or whatever help and assistance we can give you. In doing so, it will no doubt ensure that the good work undertaken by you will continue and prosper, and my committee will back you to the full. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ledden. We look forward to receiving that help in the not too distant future. Future speakers, be advised. Now, what makes this function pleasant every year is that a number of our old and dearest friends keep returning to us. And our next speaker is certainly included in that category. He is a man who needs no introduction, a man who has brought honour to Ireland in far distant shores, and who has at all times appeared here when we have asked him to do so. I now call on Mr. Ron Delaney to address you. Ron Delaney, please.
Thank you, Gerry. Chairman, Lascan Calla, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and sports people. I think Chairman, you've set a very high standard in terms of brevity, so I'll try and be equally brief. I just would like to say that it's always a pleasure to come to this outstanding sporting occasion. It's consistent with the sort of work that the Limerick City Sports Advisory Body does throughout the year, in promoting the range of events and seminars that they do as part of their contribution to Sport for All. It's always an outstanding occasion, and therefore it's always a pleasure to be here. I'd like to join with the chairman in paying tribute to Mary, who's always very welcoming, enormously efficient. The details of my visit here are always better organised than anywhere else I think I ever go. And of course Gerry, the great work you do, and indeed the entire committee, the great work they do. But I would like to say, I think on behalf of Gerry, Mary and the committee, a particular word of thanks to the chairman of the VEC, Frank Ledden. I've been coming here for 8 years, and I know that Sport for All and the Limerick City Sports Advisory Body's work has enjoyed enormous support from the chairman and from the members of the VEC committee. And I think this is most admirable, Chairman, and I'm sure it's greatly appreciated here, and I appreciate it nationally because it sets a great headline. Tonight is about the award winners. I've read the extensive coverage in a very excellent programme of the achievements of our Sports Service Award winners this evening. I won't attempt to single out any one person at this point, but I would like to say that reading the description of their commitment, there's common threads. Every person seems to have spent an enormous number of years contributing voluntary to sport. Every person seems to have an interest not alone in adult sport, elite sport, but also junior sport or young children. In other words, their interest extends to across the whole spectrum. And everyone is devoting their own personal time in a voluntary capacity without remuneration. This common thread is there in the history of every single award winner's achievements, and I think this is enormously admirable. The commitment, the dedication, and the voluntary effort that is there. I said I wouldn't single out any one person, but I'm sure you forgive me if I single out Sean Naughton, because I had a history in my own sporting career of indoor athletics. Indeed, the Irish over the years have made an enormous contribution to the history of indoor athletics in the world. I was fortunate to be able to contribute in my time Eamon Coughlin and the latest world record holder Sonia O'Sullivan. And the dream of Sean Naughton, and I'm sure he'd want me to say it, and Nenagh Olympic and his brothers and the members of the committee there, the dream reached fulfilment. I think it was the 23rd of December this year when there was this very formal opening. And suddenly we had an indoor training arena with a 200-metre running track for our domestic-based athletes to train and to perform on, as they did so excellently at the weekend. Now this is an example of what tonight is about. It's about an example of dedication, it's an example of commitment, and it's an example of a word I haven't used up to now, vision. Because Sean and his colleagues in Nenagh Olympic had the vision to create this marvellous arena, which I know will make a wonderful contribution to Irish sport in the years and years ahead. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, if you can indulge me for another minute or two, I'm delighted to share this evening with Lascan Corla, Jim Tunney, who, not that it needs mentioning, was the first Minister of Sport, who formed COSPOR. And in forming it, he set up terms of reference which have stood the test of time. He had the vision to ask us to implement Sport for All policy, to give everyone out there the opportunity to take part, the privileged, the underprivileged, the young, the not so young. He had the interest to ask us, in the terms of reference, to provide advice on the funding of sport, and we came up with some ideas on that, to advise on facilities. to generate a greater involvement by the people of Ireland at large in sport. And he gave us terms of reference which I believe have stood the test of time, which were visionary in their own time and have enabled the Sports Council to function very effectively over the years. So, Lashkan Ceola, former Minister of Sport, I thank you for giving us such outstanding terms of reference when you were Minister for Sport. Finally, if I may, in reviewing my own work with the Sports Council and the pleasure it has been for me, I always enjoyed the enormous support of everyone on the Council, but in particular, Eamon Doherty, as Chairman of the Sport Board Committee, and Eamon, my tribute to you this evening as well. I forgot to mention Mossy Kelly, the man with the purse strings, whom Gerry was addressing his remarks to earlier. So Mossy, watch out, there's a demand for more money going to come in. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting all the Sports Service Awards recipients later and to congratulating them in person. Thank you very much indeed.
It always happens, especially where Ronnie is concerned. Last year he preempted me. He was after scoring a hole in one the day before he arrived here, and before I got a chance to mention it, he was boasting about it. Now, I had intended reading from a circular letter which I have here to introduce our next guest. And I just take the first paragraph. 14th of September 1979. Letter to my boss, Minister Kelly down there. Dear Sir, as you know, COSPOR, the National Sports Council, was established by Mr. Jim Tunney, TD, Minister of State at the Department of Education, to help him to implement the government's policy in relation to sport for all. On this occasion, the seventh such occasion that we've gathered here tonight, I think it's particularly appropriate that we give a particular Limerick welcome to the man who started it all, Mr. Jim Tunney.
Really, ahel is vinach en vroeger Hjuracha wat heute is even lamsa vensha is even lam a go ni verloren wat je wil dine ganula agus id kilura rod fonta. Ní gach lá a hagan an de sin ag duine bit. So cén fá nach fráiltóin se rih an chuide a tugadam má chara geróid. Bhean seo chun an ihe ionfach penóid seo a cahalibse. Mr. Chairman, it is always difficult when one follows distinguished speakers to articulate or to mention anything that may be engaging or important. I don't want to impose at any great length on your kind and enforced audience, but I would wish that you would understand if I take the liberty of saying how pleased, honoured, privileged and happy I am that an invitation was extended to me to share this great occasion with you. And I say that not just to satisfy the convention or to indicate to you that I'm a courteous, gracious and grateful person, but because in my heart, that is how I feel. All my life, I have wondered why that exercise in education which unfortunately is given the word sport, has never been given its true respect or significance. And because of that, all the many, many people in Ireland who, day in, day out, week in, week out, apply themselves to the pursuit of the education of their neighbours' children, and indeed of their own, and who do it in a true sense of love, patriotism, and one might say, sense of Christianity, have always been taken for granted. And an impression given that they should be tolerated rather than commended. Even though, as I say, they have been engaged in what to me is, and I say this as an educationalist, is in perfect accord with the healthy mind in the healthy body. And then we had the situation where in these exercises and these disciplines, certain people did reach the top, and naturally the kudos and the palms were given to them. But the many, many people who made it possible never seemed to get any recognition. Insofar as Cosbor, my creation, the word is my creation. The fact that they, in this year of their birth, an offshoot of Cosbor, has done it in many years, have invited me here, so that they, in the exercise of the spirit of what they thought of what they know Cosbor is about, have invited me here to share with them their commendation of 10 special people, plus one or two others, who have been pursuing that lonely avenue. I am delighted to be here. And if Cosbor did nothing else, I would regard it as having served a purpose. I might say in passing that Cosbor hasn't achieved all that I had envisaged. Cosbor, and I remember in the Hibernian Hotel, when I had the privilege and the honour again of addressing that body, chaired by a man who thankfully is here present, the only holder then and now of an Olympic gold medal, Ronnie Delaney. I remember saying to the body that they were like all new creations. They were an infant body. And that I regretted that I couldn't do any more than be responsible for their creation. But that I hoped and prayed that as they grew, they would grow teeth. The ones that I could give them at that stage would be false, but they would develop their own teeth. And I regret that successive governments have not cooperated with Cosbor in the fashion that I would have wished. And I regret that tonight I am not addressing you and referring to Cosbor as a statutory body responsible for the exercise of the programmes and policies which we had set for them 10 years ago. I'm sorry, Gerry, if in a tradition of that profession called politician, I would seem to be making a speech that I must, in deference to your wish and mindful of the fact that there are many speeches to be made yet, I must refrain from delving too far into that. But I want to be associated with the body in congratulating and complimenting those people who are fortunate enough to be honoured here tonight. And in honouring them, to extend that to all other people who give of their time, of their commitment, of their conviction, of their dedication, so that the rest of us can be the better of it. In what other area today is there a similar situation? We live in frightening and frightful times where selfishness and materialism and mayfainery seems to be the order of the day. And looking around and examining the scene, the only area in which I get comfort as an Irishman, indeed as a man of the world, is when I see all the voluntary agencies in this country who are prepared to work for their fellow man. And I say to the present government, as I said to other governments, nobody questions the value of what's been done by these voluntary bodies. And in the matter of money, all they look for is that amount of money which will give to them a professional element, which, however paradoxically, guarantees a better reward all round. That's all they look for. There is no other area where the same return for money is given. At the moment, there is more than was given in the past. I don't want just to spend money for money's sake. But I think that in any area where it can be demonstrated that the pursuit of the discipline can be rendered more perfect by the application of a limited amount of money, that money should be made available without question. I'm sorry that I'm in Limerick tonight, 2 days after the defeat of Gerry. There's compensation in what Limerick did in soccer. There's compensation in what young Munster did. There's compensation in the fact that this year you will be celebrating the 3rd centenary of what happened on the 3rd of October 1691. But take it from me finally that I believe Limerick tonight a much happier man than I found myself when I arrived. A bit I said to Eamon Doherty there, I have an abiding interest in sport. The happiest days of my political life were those days when I was Minister for Sport. And the political fortunes decided I should be elsewhere. But like Oisin in Nenagh, or unlike Oisin, who when he came back dismounted from the horse and was old again, I still remain on the horse. Hopeful that I will continue to enjoy the company of those exceptional people such as you gathered here tonight. And on a broader scene, I leave Limerick full of greater hope in the times in which we live. Times of certain obscenities, a world that shows more weeds than flowers. I will leave Limerick tonight with a little snowdrop of hope that as long as Cosbor and Limerick is as it was tonight, there is hope for Ireland. Gurmagh.
Would that time constraints with the time constraints, hadn't put such a short limit on Mr. Tunney's speech. I do apologise. I certainly could have stayed listening to him for much longer. Thank you very much. Now we begin the presentation of awards, and the first award tonight will be for athletics, and it is my pleasure to call on Paddy O'Connor to read a citation for Mary Cronin. Paddy O'Connor, please.
Flourished, Mr. Chairman, honourable guests, last town choir, I know I have the order wrong, but how I wish I could be as eloquent as the last town choir and Ron Delaney, who spoke without a single note in front of them. I have to have a few notes. Brilliant. Mary Cronin is 28 years, I think, involved in athletics, first as an athlete and later as an official. She's been a dedicated follower of the sport in all that time, and especially for the past 10 or 12 years, she has really, as you've seen in the citation there, devoted her time especially to coaching and to administration. She's been involved in Cronin Athletic Club, Limerick Athletic Club, the Munster Council she was secretary for this period, the National SAC, that was Mary, she was there. She also is involved in the Veterans Athletics, and she has done so much, especially as a liaison officer between BLE and the Veterans Association, that there is such harmony between those two bodies at the moment, all due to Mary. She never misses a meeting that she's supposed to go to, and if it's anywhere controversial, Mary will sit there quietly, and then you'll hear, Mr. Chairman, I may be out of order, but well, if you hear that, you can be sure of two things. She is out of order, and number two, she'll talk. And she'll get her point in, and you know, it always makes sense. That's our Mary. She's, I would say, one of the great characters of sport, of our sport anyway, and she's had some great moments, but I don't think she will ever forget, I hope she doesn't mind me saying so, an incident, I think it was in Kilmallock in 1972. She was lining up in a mixed race, a 10K. Mary Cronin's taking down her tractful bottoms. How she discovered she'd forgotten her shots. That actually happened. And right on the bat, she borrowed a pair of shorts from a man put a second pair, by the way. And she actually, she won the race. Also, she's a vegetarian, and Paul O'Connor and I will never forget an incident in Greece in a restaurant at the European Championships, which she was trying to explain this to a Greek restaurant. So anyway, she got away. And here tonight, Mary is accompanied by her son, Pat, and I would like Pat to know that Mary is beloved by everyone in athletics all over Ireland. She is greatly respected, and I don't think she's a single enemy in the world. Mary is a worthy recipient of this award.
Congratulations, Mary. The second recipient tonight is Michael Fitzgerald for his tremendous work in the area of GAA, and especially for his work in the Catholic Square Club. Mr. Dunn has to read a citation. Dunn.
When it comes to, Mr. Chairman, award winners, guests, when one comes to talk about Michael Fitzgerald, one really talks about a lifetime of service to his sport. Like many people in other sports, he has given an absolute lifetime. And just to show you that, I will just read a few statistics. Right, he started with his native Adair, and he was secretary of that club from 1951 to 1959. He was treasurer of Adair GAA club from 56 to 72. So you will see the two main offices in a club overlapped for 3 years for him. He was the West Board delegate in the 1950s and 1960s. Now in the 1950s and 1960s, transport wasn't as plentiful as it was now. But Michael had no compunction about getting onto his bicycle and cycling from his native Adair to Rathkeil to Newcastle West for meetings, often coming home, of course, in the small hours of the morning. He represented West Limerick in the senior board, at county board and at appeals committee. He came to Patrickswell in 1965. Significantly, it was the year that they won their first senior hurling championship. And of course, I suppose the temptation would be there to throw your lot in with a club that was doing well. But no, Michael decided that he would stick with his native Adair and that he wouldn't leave them immediately. And he actually didn't join Patrickswell until the early 70s. He became secretary of Patrickswell in 1985 after serving for many, many years on their committees. He's a tireless worker for his club, year in, year out. As well as being a most efficient secretary, he collects much needed finance for the club and has had a big, big part in the building of their clubhouse and the development of their field. He advises teams and advises mentors on all aspects of the club. They have a mayoral election every 2 years, and of course to keep an account of the mayoral election you need a man who is very diligent but who is also very trustworthy, because of course these mayoral elections do become competitive whether we like it or not. But every year Michael is made the returning officer for that election. He produces match programs for his club, right? The highlight of the Patrickswell AGM is the secretary's report. Lots of times the secretary's report, you try and get rid of it as fast as possible, but in Patrickswell they look forward to his secretary's report. It is finely detailed and it is eminently readable. He has an involvement in SCORE, and for those who don't know what SCORE is, it's the GAA's winter cultural activities of music, song and dance. We've spoken really about Michael Fitzgerald, the administrator. Right, Michael Fitzgerald, the man. Well, Michael is a county council official. He's married to Chris. Chris is a sister of Frankie Nolan, who won an All-Ireland with Limerick in 1973. He has 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. He has hobbies, believe it or not, with all the he still has time for hobbies. He reads and he listens to Irish music and to country and western music. Now, he carries out his duties in an efficient, genial and honest way. And I think his honesty is the one trait which most people speak of Michael. And just a little anecdote. In the early rounds of leagues, especially for the young lads and that, both teams provide the umpire. Now the umpire has a specific duty, it's to point out the goals of the points, but also they tend to keep an eye on each other. There's one from each club and they keep an eye on each other to see that they're doing it honest. I was at a match one night and there was a manager, very competitive manager, and who would let nothing go with the opposition, and they were playing Patrickswell. And somebody came along the line and said, "We have no umpire at the top goals." And the man looked up and he couldn't see to it. He said, "Who's the umpire from Patrickswell?" "Michael Fitzgerald." "Ah," he says, "we need no umpire up there, so that'll be great." Michael's reward is not really a reward for 1990 or 1991. It is a reward for many, many years of dedicated service to the game, and I could honestly say in those 40 years that he has been an administrator, I doubt if he has ever hurt anybody. A most deserving winner tonight of the award. I know he hates every minute of it, but Michael, it's well deserved.
Now, congratulations to Michael. and Patrick Swell. That makes it 2 for Patrick Swell this week. I suppose you have Gerry, but still like the chairman of the county board. Congratulations, Gerry. Right. Next award is for Margaret Heffernan, Badminton, and read it, Lucy Ryan.
Cahirirlach a Dhuine Uisle, Friends of Sport. Here's one for Adair. I wish to introduce to you this evening Margaret Heffernan. Margaret Heffernan has been nominated for her tremendous work in the administration and coaching of badminton in Limerick City and County over the past 10 years. Margaret is a member of the Adair Badminton Club, a village which is synonymous with some of the best players in Limerick, Munster and Ireland. Margaret has acted as chairperson, secretary, treasurer and is presently fixture secretary in her club. This means she has to coordinate all the teams involved in all the fixtures in Limerick and in Munster, and she still ensures that the ordinary members are given adequate time for practice. Margaret was elected to represent the club at county board level. Margaret deals with every situation in a patient, compassionate and yet logical manner, and she generally manages to please even the most irate players. This alone would merit her any award. Margaret became involved in coaching, and currently she coaches juveniles 3 nights a week at county level to ensure that Adair and Limerick continue to produce top-class players in the future. When Treaty 300 Sport and Recreation Committee contacted the various sport bodies, the Limerick Badminton Association were one of the first to promise a major fixture, which will be the first ever international between Ireland and Scotland to be staged in Limerick next month. And Margaret was one of the chief negotiators with the Badminton Union of Ireland to engage this major fixture. Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret certainly deserves the prize and the award which she is going to receive tonight.
Congratulations, Margaret. Now, the next award is for boxing, and the recipient is John Jones. Captain Michael Egan to read the citation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the gentleman on my left-hand side there, John Jones. In the years that we have issued awards here, he achieves a rare distinction. This is the first year that a nominee for boxing was nominated by every boxing club in Limerick, by the county board, by 2 Limerick-based international boxers, and by a number of independent people as well. John Jones is an Adair man, but he does not get his award for work he has done in Adair. He has done it for Rathkeil Boxing Club, principally, and for the county and the country indeed in general. John Jones, to look at him, you would never think that he has spent more than 30 years performing Trojan work for boxing, but he surely has. In his period as a competitor, he has won 6 Limerick titles, 3 Munster titles, and was runner-up for 2 national titles. But this is only a small part of the work he has done. John, after he finished boxing himself, became deeply immersed in the running of Rathkeil Boxing Club, principally in the coaching aspect of it. And he has put through his hands numerous inter-county, provincial and indeed international boxers. The most recent one of whom is Gerry McNamara, who competed twice in 1990 for Ireland, against England and again against Wales. John spends approximately 2 hours every night coaching these youngsters, and that's, I am reliably told, a conservative estimate. That is 5 nights a week during the winter period, and into the competition season 7 nights a week. Now this commitment is huge indeed. John is also a member of the county boxing board, which means that he has to travel to meetings in addition to all this coaching. He was recently nominated as tournament inspector for the international Ireland versus Russia competition that was arranged especially for the tercentenary celebration. He got this award for his, not alone his dedication, but also his great honesty and integrity. John is here tonight. He's an unassuming man, does not seek the limelight, but he gets it tonight, like it or not, and he surely deserves it. Tonight, also here with him, his wife Margaret, and I'm sure she should get a reward for all the sacrifices and time that she has given to him. I'm sure she's proud of you tonight, John, and well she should be. In conclusion, I am limited in the amount of time I can speak, unfortunately. I could speak all night. And in conclusion, I would like to quote just a small excerpt from one of the nominations that was handed in for John, and I think it speaks an awful lot for the man himself. The man who submitted this nomination, I won't name him, but he is also a coach of a boxing club who often compete against Rathkeale Boxing Club, and he states, "I can say sincerely that in my own 20 years in boxing, I have never met a man who possesses the integrity, honesty, obliging qualities and good nature that my good friend John Jones of Rathkeale Boxing Club does." I need say no more. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you John Jones.
John Jones. Next recipient is Gerry McCormack for his work with soccer, both at inter-firm level and the schools level. And to read the citation, Albert Maxine.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, last year one of the things most people remember were the achievements of the Irish soccer team in the World Cup in Italy. People like our next recipient, Gerry McCormack, laid the foundations for the future of Whelans, McGraths and Bonners. Gerry is Secretary of the Limerick Schoolboy Council, and he has responsibilities for fixtures, venues and all the headaches that go with arranging league and club matches. Gerry is also a selector on the Irish Under-15 schoolboys team and is the Limerick delegate for the schoolboys soccer to the Irish Council in Dublin. Limerick actually has 3 players on that Irish team. Limerick's Treaty 300 year sees the first schoolboy international to be staged in Limerick, and Gerry and his hard-working committee must be thanked for bringing this prestigious match to Limerick. Gerry, for the past few months, is compiling a souvenir programme for this historic event, which will feature which will have a feature on players who have come through the schoolboys ranks since 1952. Just when Gerry should be taking a well-earned break from cup and league fixtures in the schoolboys section. It's back to work again as Gerry is fixture secretary in the inter-firm soccer leagues. From a personal note, from playing the inter-firm soccer, it's hard enough to get 11 guys to play at a particular time at a particular venue, let alone try and coordinate over 100 teams throughout the year. Gerry spends 2 to 3 hours every day, and most of his weekends are held up with his secretarial duty, but in between all this, he still finds time to train and manage the schoolboys in his own club, Hyde Rangers. Ladies and gentlemen, winner of the Soccer Sports Service Award, Sir Gerry McCormack.
Hi, Gerry.
We have to go again now.
Thank you, George. Well, our next recipient is making our way to the seat. You know, I was reminded there of the anecdote of Michael when he was talking about John Jones. Mary and I have another story to tell about him, that in the recent international between Ireland and Estonia, we were wondering, you know, if he was present, and we asked a friend of ours about him, and he had to put one of the Estonian judges in his place, and then during the first night there were a few fierce bad decisions, like, you know, they were going against Ireland, but he had to. And such was his dedication, and such is his dedication, that on that particular day he had already left his mother into hospital with a broken hip. And such is his dedication, as I say, that here he was, after leaving his mother in the good care of the doctors and in the hospital, out he was in the Limerick officiating that night. Now, that is a sign of his dedication. Maxine Murphy is our next recipient, the recipient for rowing. And she didn't fall into the water or anything like that. You can see her coming up in purchase here, but indeed a very deserving recipient also. And to read the citation, Mary Costello.
Right. My first recollection of rowing is walking along the River Shannon on summer evenings and seeing this man cycling along, shouting at the crew in the river. And I could never wonder why he never fell into the river, because he never seemed to look on the path, just at the crew. I discovered some years later that this guy was Dermot Henaghan, who went on to become president of the Irish Amateur Rowing Union, and I think he's still president. In 1988, Ireland was given the chance of hosting the FISA World Rowing Conference, and Dermot immediately thought this was a great chance for Limerick, so he set up a committee and made all the necessary arrangements. And in doing so, he contacted, I think he was getting grant aid from Cossport at national level, so he decided to contact the local committee of Gerry and I and asked if we would help. So naturally we row in and help out in any way we can. But it's one of the few things I was asked to do where I really can't recall doing any work. We were invited to press receptions and functions and so forth. And you know, it was incredible, but that's really where I learned a lot about rowing. Well, not a lot, but I got the background of it. And I could appreciate, even if they're just going to a regatta, somebody driving with a boat behind, they can go at something like 10 miles an hour. And you can imagine if you're going to Belfast at 10 miles an hour with a boat behind you. Anyhow, I met a lot of people in rowing, and I kept hearing this name, Maxine, every so often. This person was involved in coaching, administration of the club, administration of the regatta committee, organising the FISA rowing conference, as well as competing at top level and winning national awards. So I felt surely this couldn't just be one person, it must be a few. And it was really only when the nominations came in for these current awards I discovered that yes, it is one person and she has done all of these things. Maxine began rowing in 1973 with the Lunkard Boat Club and has continued rowing until 1989, culminating by winning the Elite Pairs Championships of Ireland for Shannon Rowing Club. She has represented Ireland on 3 occasions, 1985, 87 and 89, twice with her sister Claire and once with Nico Ryan. And she was successful on 2 of these 3 occasions. The next thing I'm going to say gives me great pleasure because I know my chairman thinks I'm a feminist and all this, but Maxine was the first woman to become Secretary-Treasurer of the Limerick Boat Club. She was the first woman to be elected to the Limerick Regatta Committee and also the first woman in Munster to obtain her umpire's licence. For the past 5 years she has been involved in coaching other girls both in Shannon Roy Club and Limerick Boat Club, and her help in preparing girls for interprovincial and national trials is invaluable. And she also helps out providing transport, which is much appreciated. As Assistant Secretary of the Limerick Regatta Committee, her commitment is year-long, and she is exceptionally busy on the month leading up to the regatta. She is actively involved in fundraising for the rowing clubs and gives her time generously and voluntarily. You're probably wondering, did she suffer her injury while practicing or rowing? But Maxine has been involved, as I said, since 1973 and has never had an injury. But I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but on the week before Christmas, she went to Cork to do some shopping, slipped on the street and broke her ankle. Thoroughly deserving award winner.
No, congratulations again, Maxine. Mary, I was afraid that I was thinking sort of as a feminist. Believe me, I enjoy the feminine company. I love it. And far be it from anyone to suggest that I don't. Now, to get on with the business. Our next recipient is Jim Riordan for his work in swimming. A very deserving award winner, and to read the citation, Patsy O'Brien. Patsy O'Brien.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Jim Riordan. As a swim teacher, coach, water safety instructor, first aid instructor and club treasurer, Jim Riordan of Seal Swimming Club has few equals. He teaches, prepares lessons, plans for 20 teachers at teaching and water safety instruction. If that is not enough, Jim is treasurer of the club, which costs at least $25,000 per annum to run. He has the responsibility of gathering club fees, making payments for pool times used, arranging hours, attending classes and meetings. This means he has to attend at 4 different pool sites at different times during the week. He is also responsible for the sale of swim togs, hats, goggles, kickboards, armbands and tracksuits. With all this responsibility at the Riordan household, we would expect Jim's wife Cassie, also a great worker for the club, to share in this award. When the CUS4 Service Awards were initiated in 1983, in Limerick, there was only 1 medal winner for swimming at Munster level. Now, in 1991, there are 7 international swimmers training with the top squads in Limerick Swimming Club, making it the top swimming city in the country. Seal Swimming Club, with up to 400 members, is proud of Jim and the groundwork which must be done at club level with young children to bring them to this standard. And Jim has been involved in this with Seal Swimming Club. Jim has been involved with Seal Swimming Club for the past 12 years and has been a source of inspiration to all the club. He was involved in setting up the Limerick Swimming Club, set up to streamline the coaching of top-class competitive swimmers. He was also involved in setting up the Academy of Swimming, set up to help the funding of teacher education to help fund cross-channel trips for young swimmers going to swim in Thornbury in England. Jim is a firm believer in education for the future of swim teachers and coaches. And with this in mind, he has encouraged numerous teachers into the sport of swimming and the serious business of water safety, catering for children until they become top-class lifeguards. Over the years, Jim has had some anxious moments, and none more so than the trip to England in 1986. Seal were travelling by bus to Thornbury Swimming Club for an international club gala with 50 children on board. They were rushing for the boat when the bus broke down at Drumkeen. There was a rush to wake up a farmer who loaned them a flash lamp so the driver could repair the bus. The bus got going again, only to break down at Palace Green. Right. This time a better job was done, and the bus didn't break down again until they were 100 yards from Thornbury Pool. Jim, I was told the farmer wants a splash lamp back. Congratulations, Jim, to a top teacher from the top school of swimming. Well done, Jim.
Congratulations, Jim. Now, the next award is for a sport which is being honoured for the first time. The recipient is Tom O'Donnell, and the reader of the citation is Breda Deegan.
Chairman, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure this evening to read this citation for Tom O'Donnell. And I'd also like to welcome his wife Jean and his mother Yvonne to the gathering this evening. The Limerick Triathlon Club was formed in 1984 in St Enda's Sports Complex by the then manager Peter Snow, Gerry Hartman, a very famous triathlete in Ireland, and Albert Laguerre. Tom O'Donnell joined the club the following year in 1985 and has held various committee positions since then. In 1988, he was elected President of the Irish Triathlon Association, which is a 32-county body, and such was his success at this position that he was re-elected for the following 2 years. Totally unopposed. And I'm quite sure if it was not the fact that 3 years is the maximum term of office, he would still be president. Tom's expert committee skills at organisational level were also recognised by other European triathlon bodies. And when the office of President of the European Triathlon Association became vacant in the autumn of 1990, Tom O'Donnell was approached and asked to fill this vacancy. He was unanimously elected President of the European Triathlon Union at their last AGM, and he's indeed a worthy representative of both Limerick Triathlon Club and the Irish Triathlon Association. However, it is not just at administration level that Tom excels, as he contributes approximately 6 to 8 hours per week coaching younger triathletes. He is to be seen at St Enda's Swimming Pool, giving invaluable advice on technique and general fitness level required in triathletes. And indeed, if that was not enough, Tom can be seen most Saturday mornings at Classy Bank, giving useful tips on running to the less experienced triathletes. As many of you will know, the sport of triathlon is a combination of swim, cycle and run. Tom O'Donnell's family are no strangers to holding high committee positions, as his late father, also Tom O'Donnell, was president of the Irish Golfing Association, and his brother Jim also attained high office in Limerick Golf Club. Tom is an excellent ambassador for the sport of triathlon, and in this historic year, when we commemorate the Treaty 300 signing, I am sure he will again make us proud of the fact that Limerick people can compete with the best in Europe, both on an active and administrative level, and I would like to offer my sincere congratulations, as I'm sure you all will, to Tom O'Donnell.
He almost has it. Give her a hand. Oh, sorry.
Now, congratulations, Tom. Well done. The next recipient is Tom Tobin, and it's for a lifetime of service to soccer. Now, a lifetime is a long time, and the amount of work that is done in a lifetime is certainly a tremendous amount of work. And our understanding is that Tom Tobin has done an enormous amount of work. To read the citation, I call it Michael Manlon.
About 2 weeks ago I was asked, would I do a citation for one of the people receiving the award tonight, and I certainly jumped at the opportunity to speak on behalf of Tom Tobin. Tom I know for quite a number of years, unfortunately only half as long as he has contributed to sport. I want my notes here principally to go back as far as Tom goes in sport, starting back in the 1940s. He's being honoured for his contribution to soccer, but Tom's contribution has been to far more than soccer. I got to know him originally in St. Michael's Rowing Club back in 1967. Tom was down in the rowing club just looking around. At that time there was a man paid to launch the boats, and about 12 months later the club found that it had difficulties financially and otherwise, and the man that was being paid was not there anymore. And who steps into his shoes every evening? Only Tom Tobin. He launched the boats in St. Michael's for quite a number of years, and certainly during his time as president. He was president of St. Michael's from 1969 to 1972, and Tom was found over in St. Michael's Rowing Club every evening with his waders on, standing out in the water for the next crew to go out. That gives you some idea of the type of contribution Tom has made to rowing. He was vice captain of St. Michael's in 1956 and 57, and during those years he did quite a considerable amount of coaching. He was player coach and chief motivator of St. Michael's soccer team in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, until such time as the club folded, and it folded because of, certainly through no fault of Tom Tobin's anyway. He played full-back in the famous Red United juvenile soccer team, and he is presently an honorary life member of St. Michael's. Tom's prowess as a sportsman is only surpassed by his ability to administer, and the work that he has done for the junior soccer in Limerick, working, developing Jackman Park and all the other playing pitches. The work he has done there is second to none. Tom's achievements in sport, again, were quite high, but unfortunately never exactly what he should have got. He was in the 1948 maiden eight, which won the Ashburn Cup in Cork from 11 crews. The bookies, which were prevalent in rowing regattas at that time, quoted St. Michael's as 20 to 1 against, and Tom and his
comrades turned up trumps and won the event. He also played rugby with young monsters, as they were mentioned here already tonight, and unfortunately he missed a Junior Cup medal with them in what year was it? Don't have the year actually. But he was unfortunate insofar as that he was actually in the team for 3 previous years that got to the final. But the year they won it, he was out through injury. Tom was a major contributor to table tennis and snooker developing in St. Michael's. And he also found time to go and travel around with Onoya. Tom is now believed to have retired from sport, but certainly from the top, it's the Tom Tobin I know, Tom will never retire from sport. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most deserving recipients of an award ever, Tom Tobin.
You're better. I'm only doing
The next award is also a lifetime award, and it's don't be deceived by the young-looking recipient here on my left, Brother Gerry Creevey. He has put an enormous amount of work over a lifetime in the brothers into table tennis. To read the citation, Jeff Penny.
Mr. Chairman, last Count Corla, ladies and gentlemen. Brother Gerry Creevey has been involved in coaching and administration of table tennis for over 10 years. In the early 80s, as principal of Nenagh CBS, his coaching brought All-Ireland winning titles to Nenagh and Clonmel. In 1986, Gerry was appointed principal of St. John's Primary School in Limerick and has since become heavily involved in table tennis administration. He is currently chairman over committees at local, regional and national level. As a chairman, and I can vouch for this, he resembles a cross between the late Ayatollah and the late Bill Shankly when he expounds on his beliefs of discipline, dedication and determination at all levels of the game. It was his diktat that in this treaty year of 1991, Limerick would host the All-Ireland Schools Championships. It was his suggestion that resulted in Limerick hosting a senior international match in 1991. At the reception after the match, on January the 19th last, I listened to our Scottish visitors heap praise on the superb stage management and sportsmanship of the event, due in no small way to Gary's organisational ability. Gerry, over the past 2 years, has driven junior players, some from Limerick, in the CBS minibus to the European Championships in Austria and Yugoslavia. As a geography teacher, I take numerous school groups by minibus on field trips to study karst geomorphology in the Burren. I know the mental strain that such activities can inflict on one. But driving a young group to Yugoslavia can, in my opinion, only be paralleled in mental strain by hiring Herod as a babysitter.
The ironic thing about it is that the only other example of karst geomorphology is in Yugoslavia. So I've told the lads that I now have a low-budget trip organiser for such a trip. But I'd like to say that Gerry is far from being an Ayatollah. I would like to think that he is a juvenile Moses, leading table tennis hopefully to the promised land of success in the future. Finally, before I self-destruct in 10 seconds, Gerry, on behalf of table tennis, I would just like to congratulate you on receiving this well-deserved award. Well done.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure he has aged somewhat since Jeff stood up and said those few words, and that he'll be duly forgiven for doing so. Our next award is a special community award for the encouragement of junior sport. It's a new award this year, and a very deserving one for its recipient, Anne Curley. To read a citation, Alan Shaw.
One of the difficulties in judging who is to receive Custsport awards each year is that it is rare that the nominees are known to all the judging panel. Just occasionally someone is proposed who is known to all the judges, and Anne Curley was one such person. In fact, I could safely bet that most of the people in this room have come across Anne and the work she is doing for the youth in the city. Some will know her indeed from her stall in the market, which she uses as a means of raising money to fund her youth holidays in Cork each year. Anne lives by the belief that there is a place for every child, and every child should have a place. And she has made it her aim that as many children as possible find their place. She is an educator in the best and widest sense of the word. Learning should be fun and should be about experience of life. And she achieves these aims through play schemes, youth groups and sport, covering a range that includes athletics, table tennis, basketball, volleyball, swimming, diving, water safety, canoeing, fishing, mountain climbing, bird watching, beagling, archery and orienteering. An impressive and very comprehensive list. In introducing young people from play school age to teenagers to the joys of such a wide variety of sport, many clubs represented here will have benefited, and indeed society in general benefits. I also learned while sitting at the table that Anne is well known for talking her way through many women's 10K races. For her untiring efforts for youth and sport, Anne is a worthy recipient of the Custsport Service to Sport Award.
Now we know why you come up to give this one. From the very
We come to the last but by no means least award of the night. This award is a new award. It's a new dimension to our award scheme. Nonetheless, it is very deserving. And the recipient is Sean Naughton of Nenagh. Sean Naughton has been nominated for this award in recognition of his major contribution to the development of the indoor athletic stadium in Nenagh, which is used by people from all over the country and in particular Limerick City and County. With the sale of the horticulture hall in the old showgrounds in Nenagh, it seemed that the end of top-class athletics, especially for the technical events in the Nenagh area, had come to an end. The hall, which was used by the club for indoor training and competition since the early 50s, helped to produce many All-Ireland and international winning performances over the years. When the hall came up for sale in December 1982, the club made every effort to purchase it, but the building made a record price and the club were under bidders. Now, it was always a source of mystery to me in the days when I used to attempt to compete in athletic meetings in villages around Kerry. You know how these brothers from Nenagh used to always come in and collect the clocks and in some cases the suitlets, and they always made it their business to be there, Sean and Paddy Naughton. Now, he didn't know me at the time, neither did I know him, but I certainly knew him by reputation. And how you knew a good athlete in those days, certainly for us, the way down the country, was that if they appeared in a tracksuit and had running shoes. Now, the Naughton and Nenagh had both, and they were to be doubly feared on that account. And I'm serious, this is quite true. Any of those, not many, maybe Paddy O'Connell would remember Knockanoor and Coral Sports and Ballydesmond and Knocknagoshel, now that you mention it. And for those of you who don't know, never had a Knocknagoshel, Knocknagoshel made its name, seriously, on a historical note, Knocknagoshel made its name during the Fenian Uprising when they had a huge banner placed outside it. It's called a mall up the hill, you know, that says, "Arise, Knocknagoshel, and take your place among the nations of the Celt." I'm serious, that happened for a fact. But I remember running on Patron Day, which was the 15th of August, outside Knocknagoshel, and you know, you usually suss out what the opposition was, and the boys, Paddy and Sean, were down. The going was heavy because, well, you used to call the sports like, you know, that it was the one side removed from a bog underneath. But Knocknagoshel always had one major event, and it was the 60 yards at those times, 60 yards hurls championship of Munster. And I remember when running, I got off the fly, like, you know, I knew the starter. And knowing the starter in those days was a great help, like, you know. But in any event, I was flying, I was over the first hurdle before the two guys, and I agreed with one. I said, my first Munster medal. When some knacker in the sideline blew a whistle. Now, this happened for the fact I said I wouldn't tell you a word of a lie. And I stopped, the two boys kept going. The race was over, and that was my last chance at the Munster medal anyhow. So it's not with very fond memories I remember this for at all. I don't know why I'm reading his citation, but I am anyhow. I stopped, and he has kept going ever since, and that's a fact. He has never stopped. I now know the secret of their success in those days. As I said, they used to train in the old horticulture hall in Nenagh, and they looked to be out of it in 82. However, no matter how downhearted the club were, they set about obtaining a suitable site adjacent to Nenagh Ormond Rugby Club. And again, a problem developed and they couldn't get planning permission. However, after a long search, the present site of the new stadium was purchased from Nenagh Mat Co-op on the 29th of February 1983. And as Ron has already said, on the 23rd of December 1990, that stadium was opened. The estimated cost, give or take 10,000 or other. was £250,000. That was due in no small measure to the efforts of Sean Naughton here, and let me say his family, his friends and the committee of Nenagh Olympic. We salute him here tonight, and we salute them all. Now, the contract was signed in 1984. Remember the timescale we're talking about here. Many competitions were held there, including Munster BLOE and Southern Region BLE Championships, and many national squad sessions were also held there. The Phase 2 began in November 1986 to include an extra lean-to, plus the addition of toilets, dressing and meeting rooms. And when I'm talking about that, I was up there recently myself at, I think it was one of the national championships, and you know, we talk about men. We rarely talk about the women behind them. I saw Mrs. Naughton, who's over there sitting, and she's going around with bins to make sure that the place will be left clean. That's a fact also. She may be embarrassed at me saying that now, but it's indicative of the tremendous love they have for the sport, and indeed for providing a national stadium, which is comparable. If you remember, there are only 3 indoor stadia in the British Isles. One in Nenagh, one in Cosford, and one in, outside Wolverhampton, and one in Kelvin Hall in Glasgow. And Nenagh, with its Taunton track, is the equivalent, if not better, than what exists in both Cosford and in Kelvin Hall. It gives me great pleasure to read a citation. The driving force behind this mammoth task is well known and respected, not alone in the Midwest region, but all over Ireland and in many countries in Europe. And that is why Sean Naughton is a most deserving recipient of a special award in this year's award ceremonies. Sean Naughton.
Gerry, you're not staying in this. Stay in this. Why don't you, of course? Why don't you stay in this? Gerry, come on here. Come on, Gerry.
Now, we usually conclude, and we have slightly run our hour and a quarter, but nonetheless there is also an important presentation to be made. The Christy O'Brien Perpetual Award, and which is the award which we give to the person who collects most money through sponsorship arising out of the Cusport 10. To make the award is Paul O'Brien, son of the late Christy, who did tremendous work for charity down through the years, and who's commemorated in this special way. I would ask Sister Norbert to say a few words to you before the award is made. Sister Norbert, please.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of us all at Milford Hospice and Milford Friends Committee, Hospice Committee, I thank Mr. Chairman and COSPOR for nominating Milford Hospice as a beneficiary. Last year, we had a tremendous turnout, once again, of the generosity of Limerick, walking or running in a 10-kilometre fun run for Milford Hospice. This indicates again
Your generosity, which is ongoing, never seems to stop. Your generosity and concern, your friendship and support, which we have witnessed down through the years, at least the last 7 or 8 years, since the beginning of the hospice. I don't have to tell you what we are doing in the hospice or what is happening there. You all know. But I can tell you, without your support and without your concern and generosity, which we are experiencing, we could not continue this service or meet the demands which seems to be growing every day. There seems to be more people now suffering from cancer than there were when we first envisaged the need of a hospice. You are helping us to meet those needs. You are helping us to help those patients die in dignity. And on behalf of us all, I wish you God's blessing on all that you do, on your families and on yourselves, and on each one of you. And I think there's no place in the world like the Limerick people. Limerick, you're a lady. God bless you.
Finally, if Tony O'Driscoll, please, would just maybe re-echo the sentiments of Sister Margaret, and we will then have the presentation to Peter Hogan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Vascan Cora, distinguished guests, award winners, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Friends of Milford Hospice, it's my great pleasure to be here again tonight. I would like to thank Gerry and Mary and his hard-working committee for their generous invitation to us. We are indeed extremely grateful for the generous support of the Cusbor Limerick 10K, which takes place in the summer of each year. As Sister Norbert said, unfortunately, cancer is a growing business. The admissions to the hospice each year are increasing. As a result of this, we are about to embark on a new building programme to extend the hospice facilities. Milford has now become the resource centre for the Midwest in cancer treatment, and as such will serve areas such as Ennis, Nenagh, Thurles, Roscrea, Newcastle West. Also, training facilities are being laid on for nurses who are now coming to Milford from all over the country to learn about treatment of the terminally ill. In addition, there is also a bereavement counselling service available for the families and a general counselling service to all those people who are touched by cancer. As you can well imagine, it takes an amount of funding to keep the service going. We require approximately £100,000 a year in order to keep the doors open. The balance of the funds comes from Midwestern Health Board and the Department of Health. We are extremely grateful to you and your generosity, and indeed the people of the Midwest down through the years. And it is marvellous to see athletes who can put something back in thinking of people not as well off as themselves and who are in failing health. I won't detain you any longer, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to thank you all very much indeed, and we look forward to your continued support into the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Donald. Just to make the presentation of the balance of monies from the Marathon Club, the Limerick Chess Club, the Table Tennis Clubs and the Tobin Orienteering, could I call on Jeff Penny and Peter Hogan and Paul O'Brien to make the presentation of the Christy O'Brien Trophy, please. Paul. Could we have a member of the Mountain Club, the Limerick Chess Club, Table Tennis Orienteers, and the Orienteers? Alan, please. We have Jeff. Marathon and Limerick Chess Club.
This way.
Right. Fair enough. John, would you Paul, sorry, would you, I beg your pardon, sorry. Okay. Okay, right, fair enough. Okay, we will set that, we'll set that chart up outside, please. Yeah, please. Yeah, right. I always make a mistake, and deliberate or otherwise, and I did omit to ask our other guest for the evening, former Commissioner Eamon Doherty, Chairman of the Sports Law Committee, to say a few words before we depart. Eamon Doherty, please.
Proves the point, there's no such thing as a free dinner. I had convinced him I wasn't going to speak. I thought I had convinced him, but at least he did allow me to enjoy my dinner before he called me up here. Mr. Chairman, Lascan Cordia, distinguished guests, honoured recipients, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be invited here. It's a great honour to come. But may I go back, because I've been here every year at these awards except last year. And last year, for some reason, something that doesn't happen to me too often, thank God, and touch wood, I got a bad flu bug, and I wasn't with you. I was particularly sorry I wasn't with you because I like to honour all recipients, but there was one particular recipient of your award last year, member of my former profession, Michael Marnin, and I would have liked to have been here particularly to see him being awarded his trophy, because it was always my great desire and wish that all members of the Garda Síochána should involve themselves deeply in the work of the community, in the work of youth in the community, in the work of sport in the community. And I was well aware that Michael had done that for so many, many long years. And I was particularly sorry that I wasn't here to congratulate him. I do it belatedly tonight, Michael. And, it's a pleasure, as I've said, to come to you. It's a particular pleasure to be here this year with the former Minister of Sport, the first and still Chairman of the Sports Council, and myself, the first and still Chairman of the Sport for All Committee. The Three Musketeers, you might say. But it's a unique occasion because I don't think the three of us have been together as official guests at Sports Advisory Cost Sport function over the years. And I'm delighted tonight to see Mr. Tully here and to hear him speak. And you all heard about his creation, as it was his creation, and the name was his own, because as you listen to him, you'll fully understand and appreciate his great love of the Irish language, and he created the name for that body that looks after sport in this country, COSPOR, and that was his creation. You've heard him speak of his dreams and his aspirations, and you've heard him sound a little note of perhaps discord that things haven't gone the way he would have particularly liked them to go. And you've heard Ronnie speak about the mandate that he gave us on that particular occasion. And perhaps the fact that the three of us are here tonight in this year of the Treaty 300 may be perhaps a little sign or a little signal that something is going to happen, something great is going to happen perhaps in the year 1991. And I know that Jim Tunney won't be behind the door if anything further can be done for sport in this country during that period. As I've said, mentioned what the former minister said, but I think at the same time, you know, if you look around here tonight, and those of us who have been fortunate to be at the other events, a lot has been achieved. We've come a long way along the road. Perhaps not as far as some of us involved in there would have wished, but we have come a long way. When the COSPOR was set up, when Ronnie and I sat down with the civil servants and with the other members of the committee to see what we could do about selling this whole idea of sport for all to the Irish community, we had to look around to see how it could be done. And first of all, the civil servants thought that they could do it, and the advisors that they would look after that, and it failed. Then we tried the governing bodies of sport, and while all these bodies do tremendous work, they just were not interested in taking on the additional work of sport for all, and that failed. So then we tried the Vocational Education Committees, and we're still with them, and they have done a great job for us. Now, like many other things that you start in this life, in some of the vocational education regions were better than others, just like our Lord in the parable of the seed, the good seed and the bad seed. Some didn't get off the ground at all, some flourished for a while and died, but that didn't happen in Limerick. And I was delighted, sister, to hear you speak about the people of Limerick, about their commitment to so many things, including your problems. And I can vouch for that and support what you have said about what has happened in Limerick. Because the Limerick VEC did everything under all the chairmen, including Frank, who's with us here tonight, under their CEO, who sits quietly back there, Mossy, doesn't say a word but tells them to get out there and get on with the job, and he produces results. And of course, under the great guidance of the fellow who let you know he wasn't a Limerick man, that he was from Naughton. You know, the Kerry men never allowed themselves to be left out. But under the great guidance of Gerry, they did. Limerick became alive. You've only to look at your literature, to look at the booklet, to see all the things that the Limerick Sports Advisory Body have been involved in and continue to be involved in over the years. And they're even now into the middle of the Treaty 300 Sports Committee, which I'm sure will be a highly successful thing. Gerry had around him a lot of good people, but I think he had one person in particular who gave everything that she had to ensuring that this vehicle, this sports advisory body, would succeed, would strive and progress in the years that it was set up. And I'm referring to a lady that has been referred to earlier here tonight. I'm referring to Mary Costello. Some years ago, the Sports Advisory Body in Limerick decided that they would commission a silversmith based at Ballycasey Craft Centre to create the COSPOR logo in silver. And Ronnie and myself were recipients of that little emblem, as were a number of other people. But later, in 1988, to honour the great Limerick athlete Frank O'Mara, they went a little further and they produced a gold logo. Frank O'Mara received one of those in 1988. Gerry received one for his great work. Tonight, it's my great pleasure, my great honour, on behalf of the Sports Advisory Committee, on behalf of all the sports people in Limerick, on behalf of COSPOR and the sports people of Ireland, to present Mary Costello with the gold logo. Can I take this out? Will you get it? You? Very good. that's it. I just presented to her. I was going to pass an honour of pen, but I just presented to her. Now, Gerry. Gerry said he was the feminine man of the company, but at least I have got the honours. So maybe. Thank you, everybody.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, honoured guests, I do apologise. I thank you for your patience. We have overshot the runway. In other words, we've overrun our time schedule, despite all my warnings to our people who read the recitations. I know I'll be equally blamed at our next meeting. I overran it as well. However, I do thank you. We're forced to be brief by the number of presentations we make, and you will be delighted to hear. I'm not going to give you any solemn-like views or opinions tonight. I'd like to say this much, that there, if you like, I have a story, and it's very short. You know, it's not about Nenagh now, but it is about Castle Island, place not far from it. A fellow who was the subject for This Is Your Life, and you know, the local Michael Aspel came in with the red book and everything in his hand, and it was being televised. And this chap, you know, he was he wanted a penny. It started off like this, you know, that he'd attained fabulous wealth in the course of his life, and he was quite young still. And in starting the story of his life, the local Michael Aspel went on and said, I understand, he said, that you know, it began somewhat like this. And he said, I believe one day you were, he said, you were down in so-and-so's pub. He says, I'm down and coming home, and you suddenly felt the urge of nature, and you badly wanted to spend a penny, and you were in dire pain and dire trouble, and all you had was a pound note, and the shops were closed, and you were looking for this penny, and you were in desperate straits, and you asked this fellow for a change of a pound, and he hadn't got it, and he said, what's your problem? He says, I badly need a penny. He says, I want to go to the loo. You see, so yeah, this fellow was feeling a bit flat-wool. He had his chips and whatever with him at the time. He was after having a few pints himself, and he says, look, there's sixpence. Okay? So, anyway, the man went off, and he went into the local public toilets, and he found the door open after all the trouble, went straight in and went away. And as he was going along, you know, he was met one of these all-night stands where he bought six apples. Sorry, not 6 apples, 6 cool beans. You know, and in the days gone by, cool beans weren't great with pints. Now, for those who don't know, cool beans are the pig's legs, like, you know, they're left over. So anyway, he met this. He bought the 6 cool beans, and he met this fella, and he was starved with a hunger, like, you know. Yeah, man, and he was so badly off. He said, "There's cool beans in the house, you know, the chipless." He said, "I'll give you a pound." He said, "for those cool beans." And that's fair enough, and he gave him the pound, and that started. He's acquiring of immense wealth. He went to England thereafter, and he decided that, you know, there was great money to be made in trading. That the first penny you spent was the first penny you saved, in a manner of speaking. And you know, when it came to the Michael Aspel asking him, and when he came around, and he said to him, you know, you're a millionaire now, he said, and I bet, he says, you know, you'd really like, he says, to meet the man, he says, that gave you those 6 pence. you know, and the man stood back and he talked for a few moments. No, he says, not really. But he said, I'd like to meet the man that left the door open. Ladies and gentlemen, sporting colleagues, award winners, you have left the door open for many a youngster throughout this city and throughout this county and throughout this country. I congratulate you and I thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of Limerick City Sports Advisory Body. Before we go and get the music going once again, which you will be delighted to hear, we are moving on to it, there are certain things which have to be stated to people who have been very good to us. Arlo, Tony McMahon and Leonard Burke, to Treaty 300 Sport and Recreation, Ronnie Long, to the Cork Examiner, Kieran Clancy, to Peter Heher of the Evening Press. Congratulations to him and to his new Limerick lady. They both are here. Many years of happiness. I thank you one and all, and to Len Deneen and Michael Coffey of the Tribune, to the John O'Shaughnessy and Owen South of the Limerick Leader, many thanks. Without you we couldn't operate. Without you the efforts of all these award winners wouldn't be known. Good night and God bless you, and let the music start. We would ask the award winners just to go for the photograph. The music will start up immediately and I hope you enjoy the rest of the night. Now I must thank especially Pat McDonough of the Limerick Quiet, whose staff did the backdrop for us. Last year we were advised that we should have something, and I think to those Mr. Bob Drake from the School of Art, I'd like to thank her, and I'd like to thank the Creevey. Thank you very much. Would the award winners please go up to the entrance to the hotel for a formal photograph, please, and those who Alan and company also. Thank you.